Welcome back to another episode of Brands Bites, coming at you on a Wednesday night, least of recording. So, to get started with this episode, we're going to talk about Tesla's battery longevity is better in cold climates, as this new study shows, which, to be honest, for me is not that shocking. Makes sense. Tech always operates better in the cold to a point, and especially batteries do better in colder environments. So, it would make sense to see Tesla's batteries acting the exact same way. And like I said, we have no exception here. So Recurrent, which has access to data from over 12,500 Tesla vehicles in the US through its software service, has been releasing interesting new looks into battery information based on these Teslas. So Recurrent assigns a range score to each battery it tracks. It basically, the percentage of range for attention. For example, a range of score of 90 would mean 90% of the battery pack 90% of the original size of your battery still working as intended. The firm also has found that Tesla vehicles in colder climates have, on average, a better range score than climates in hot areas. So as you can see, it's actually rather close. Now, I don't know, it's hard to know exactly what all of these 12,500 vehicles are, but as you can see, the range scores tend to be slightly lower in hot environments. That said, it's not that much different. You can make an argument that the weather itself, at this point, a 3% difference. I mean, it's a lot of battery space in a car, but it's not like the percentage isn't that different. So what you could argue is people down here, in these hotter areas are just driving more year-round versus people in these colder environments in the winter might not be commuting as much or going places as often. Also, things down in the south are just spread out more, so going places just naturally you're going to drive more over time. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is not exactly what's happening, but it seems to be what is. So extreme cold negatively affects the range of vehicles. If you don't know this, if you are owning an electric vehicle in the near future, if you live in a cold environment during that cold time of year, don't expect your range to be great. Even half. I would say 50 to 60% would be a good day with an EV in cold environments. So batteries are a lot like people, always aging, always going to get worse. Now, that said, it is interesting to see that there is scores kind of supporting this, but like I said, there's a lot of things. So this is 2020 Model Ys, I guess. So fairly comparable. I would still like to see like a mileage comparison alongside this just to see if there really is a huge difference there or not. And it would be also interesting to know if people are charging at home or with Tesla's chargers, just to see if maybe, Tesla chargers are more efficient and better at charging vehicles versus your at-home charger. If the cleaner energy or whatever affects it quite a bit or not. We don't have that information yet. And it'd be interesting to see stuff like that come out. So the same is true of batteries. Being exposed to heat is a lot like smoking cigarettes. Environmental heat contributes to extra energy in the electrochemical reactions in the battery, which can accelerate unwanted chemical reactions that age the battery prematurely. The generally accepted threshold for accelerated battery degradation is around 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I do wonder if that is Recurrent gave that explanation there, but I do kind of wonder if it's a little bit different with what Tesla has going on. But we just don't know at the moment. But it is interesting to see the information laid out. Next up with Tesla, we have Tesla announcing its 5 millionth produced electric car. This comes right at the same time that it seems like Giga Texas might be getting slowed down or kind of shut down, at least the Model Y lines and Tesla's Cybertruck lines, where they try to revamp these two lines and get these lines up and going with the new equipment that's been arriving in the last couple of weeks. So this milestone has, many people thought this would never occur, and it has happened. And at this point, I feel like if you were completely against Tesla, didn't want them to succeed, you got to admit that they've done it, they've succeeded, and they're leading the charge forward. They are that company out of thin air almost from where they started. Now, the road wasn't very easy, but the automaker eventually built its first million vehicles and achieved that in 2020. So quite wild that in 3 years, they scaled it up, just under 3 years. Whew. They were able to do another 4 million over their first million, which took them 12 years. That said, as people have been pushed to more and more electric vehicles, it's come pretty clear that For range, for power, and for, dare I say, self-driving, there is one automaker that will hit all three of those as number one and will hit a pretty good driving experience and maybe lacking some features or features done in a new or weird way. But when it comes to EVs, range, power, and self-driving, like, what else are you looking for? So Tesla's kind of got the market cornered, you could say, at least in the EV market for now. We'll have to see what happens, but, 6 months ago, they had just announced its 4 millionth car. So they are really starting to churn those out. They're getting quick at it, and they're getting efficient at it, and their build quality is getting slightly better. At least their panel gaps, they're still there. You can still definitely tell Tesla's manufacturing is not quite up to scuff. Not that it affects the use or how your car is going to operate on the road, but there's a difference there between them and the other guys. But yeah, impressive. Great job. It's amazing to see how quickly they're kind of still growing up the ranks as, essentially a brand new car company relative to everybody else. And that brings us to our next topic, which is Tim Cook on why Apple still uses Twitter. And the interesting part of this is the quote here. So the quote from Timmy Cook is, "It's there for discourse and as the town square." Now, if you're wondering, you've heard that before, and that was because Elon said that exact same sentence before he ended up buying Twitter and even after. So on the heels of Apple's Wonderlust event where they announced the new iPhone and all of that good stuff, there was an interview and they were discussing environmental goals as well, touching on the company's decision to keep using Twitter, investing in Texas, and more. So if you didn't know, it has appeared in the past that, well, it's not very open, that Tim Cook and Elon Musk are actually, they get along, and I think they see things a lot of the same way. Now, this comparison's been made before, but Tesla is kind of like the Apple of car companies. At least at the moment, there's always rumors of the Apple car coming, but I would not hold my breath for that one. So the interesting thing here is Apple has faced pushback on its decision to keep using Twitter, currently known as X, but including spending heavily to advertise on the platform. So Apple is actually one of the few companies who has upped their investment in X, which is interesting. Now, lots of other people, lots of other companies are like, we're staying away from whatever that is. And I feel like typically we'd see Apple being one of those companies, but in this case, they are continuing to support the platform, which is fascinating to see that Apple would be the one to go out of their way and do that. So Apple, when asked by Dickerson whether Apple should cease advertising on Twitter, Cook had an explanation. "It's something that we ask ourselves. Generally, my view is Twitter's an important property," Cook said. "I like the concept that is there for discourse and as a town square. There's also some things I don't like." Now, that is, I think, something that is incredible to see a CEO, especially a CEO of Apple, say out loud. Now, Dickerson, however, made an important clarification. There's discourse, and then there's anti-Semitism, said Dickerson. And Cook basically said, yeah, which is abhorrent and just point blank, there's no place for it. So is this something you're constantly evaluating? And he said it's constantly something we ask ourselves, which is very true. I agree with Cook there. And I'm glad he's willing to support a platform that is at least attempting to do that well. I'm not saying they are, but they're at least attempting to do public discourse well, where people can still have discourse. And that is great to see. Now, Dickerson also questioned Tim Cook about Apple's continued expansion in Texas and how that balances with all the other weird stuff going on in Texas, because that's Texas, And he basically said there are all these cases, whether we're selling or operating in a place, difference of opinion on something. But I'm telling you from our heart that we believe in everyone with dignity and respect, and that's how we show up as a company. And again, it's interesting to see Apple, of all companies, taking this step forward here. As a company, I wouldn't see necessarily expressing their views this way, but they're truly doing that. And it is great to see companies that are willing to stand up and just do things because that's what they want to do and that's what they see should be done. And there's not many that get behind it like that that will stand their ground. Apple is standing their ground here as well as explaining why they're doing things. And that's, again, I'm happy to see it from a company like them. Now, Cook also said, I don't do virtue signaling at all. I don't believe in it. We want to work hard. Cook said in today's interview that I want to see that it's pencils out because I want other people to copy it, and I know they're not going to copy a decision that's not a good economic decision. And Apple is trying to make it a good decision here. And again, Tim Cook, just for some reason, leading the way. Next up here, this is fascinating. So Asus is suing Samsung over an alleged smartphone patent infringement. So Samsung's 4G and 5G smartphones allegedly infringe on Asus patents. Asus phones, I have never owned one, but I have literally only seen good things about them, and maybe their camera is slightly worse. But other than that, one of the best Android experiences you can have. And so how did they end up with a patent that Samsung didn't have when Asus hasn't been doing it as long? So violations of its wireless communication patents targeting devices like the 4G and 5G phones, and the Galaxy Z Flip 5 being one of the main ones. Despite its challenges in the smartphone market, apparently they have a great patent collection to go after companies with, and they have the confidence to go after Samsung here. So Asus reportedly approached Samsung a year and a half ago, asking for licensing fees to use what it asserts is its patented tech, but the two companies failed to reach an agreement. There's context to be added, though. Despite Asus Tech's struggles in the smartphone market, which led to its focus on niche market segments of gaming smartphones, the company has consistently invested in mobile technology over the years, amassing a significant patent portfolio. Sounds like something you would do if you were another company out there. So what is actually going on here? The patent in question described a method and apparatus for improving transmission configured resources in a wireless communication system, 4G and 5G phones, as we've said before. And that is apparently all this article is going to tell us. Man, I should have paid more attention. So Asus entered the smartphone arena in 2003. Obviously, they're not a major player at the moment, but the company's own projections for its ROG smartphone and Zenfone series in 2023, however, are around 600,000 units. I think that's about what I would have expected. Millions felt high. Lower than that feels low. Maybe feels a little bit on the low end for what I expected. That said, Samsung shipped over 260 smartphones in 2022 alone. So Samsung clearly doing many more. Now, lawsuits involving patents take years, and it's hard to know exactly what the actual patent's for, because why would this tell us what it is? Basically, something is wrong with 4G and 5G phones. Fascinating to see, though. And they did this in the Eastern District of Texas over a single wireless communications packet. You know, this is just... Patents are weird, and this is a great example of it. And like, how does a company like a Samsung, it's like add phones, right? They do tons of phones every year. And how are they supposed to know if like they invented something new or if it's just something that was patented? And like how do you know if it's close enough? I mean, you could say, yeah, you should be checking, but like, how many companies or people have patents? Like, how many things are you going to check? There's too many. So this whole patent thing is like super weird, in my opinion. I understand like the reasoning behind it and wanting to, if you come up with an idea, not have someone steal it, kind of thing. But at the same time, like, how are you supposed to figure that out? Because there are so many things that are patented out there, and this is a great example. Because 4G and 5G smartphones is like probably a few generations at least now. And that makes you question some things. Next up, we have a YouTuber creates a modular gaming handheld using Framework's Intel Core i7 1260p motherboard. So if you didn't know, gaming handhelds for some reason are taking off. Personally, the Wii U was cool. Never had an interest since then. That said, they're taking off. They're cool, and I can see why people would enjoy them over like a laptop or something like that, especially after the Nintendo Switch came out. So modular products such as Framework's laptops have garnered interest in the market. Framework laptops, if you did not know, are super cool. Being able to take parts and swap them out just like you would a desktop PC, but even all the way up to the screen, the bezels, the keyboard, the numpad, no numpad, speakers, upgrade it as you please over time. Super cool concept, awesome way to do it. And you can buy these parts used later on. And then you could buy like your laptop motherboard. So you take that out, you take your old one out, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to build a NAS with this one. You print an enclosure or go buy an enclosure, you shove that in there. You go buy some storage or whatever else, and you just put it all together on your own. You put your new motherboard in your old laptop, bada bing, bada boom, upgrade, new thing. Super cool. Just upgrade all of the parts. Unlike current laptops that are like soldered or you can't upgrade it or they use some weird proprietary memory, whatever. The idea here, easy for you to do it. Now, Pit Stop Tech went out of his way and built his own Steam Deck, if you will, using it. So the main board sells for $549 US, which to give you an idea, the cost of this product is not going to be a cheap one necessarily, but a cool use for if you are a framework owner or if you move on to owning a framework and you're like, oh, what can I do with this when I'm done? Boom, gaming handheld. So it's going to be a little bit on the more expensive side, but the modular handheld features detachable joysticks with a similar mechanism to the Nintendo Switch. Super cool. Features a 7-inch 1080p touchscreen display, which can be connected to an external display using a dedicated USB-C port. Full-featured USB-C port and 3.5mm headphone jack, which for some reason people are still trying to hang on to. I feel like we should all just, it's time, move on. Now, the iGPU seems to be doing a good enough job. Memory and storage include 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 512GB storage. Another cool thing, you're using your old framework here. Upgrade your RAM, upgrade your storage, both possible. How wild is that? Now, it features a decent 55 watt-hour battery and dual front speakers, which means this shit weighs a lot. If you think the Steam Deck looks a little chunky or one of those other handheld devices, this will definitely out-chunk it. That said, you could replace this with an AMD Ryzen 7 7840U Phoenix APU, which opens up several possibilities for adopting such handhelds. You can buy old framework parts that they sell in their store to do this. Super cool, super awesome. Just runs Windows, it looks like, and because it's 1080p, easy to run. Now, if you could find a smaller screen, actually, you can make an argument that, we're going back in time here with the bezels and stuff, but he made it at home. See, to an extent, you gotta be like, kind of gotta let it go. But if you went 720p or something and like got a decently fast display, this could be a really cool way to use your old laptop parts. Super cool, awesome concept, and great to see it come through. Lastly, and this is kind of my favorite one at the moment, but a Canadian camera was able to capture 4.8 million frames per second cost effectively, because cost is everything when it comes to cameras like this. Normally expect it to be, it's a little bit up there. But 4.8 million frames per second is a wild amount. And what sets this camera apart, other than the speed, which is already pretty wild, is its significantly lower cost, thanks to off-the-shelf components, which is interesting. The primary objective of this research was to devise a cost-effective method of capturing clear images of ultra-fast movements, think falling water droplets, or even molecular interactions, which require cameras exceeding $100,000, which is, if you didn't know, a lot of money and not cheap. So the key breakthrough was enabling an extraordinary speed is the time gating method, known as time varying optical diffraction in essence. Holy crap. So this technique controls when light reaches the sensor by rapidly opening and closing a gate multiple times before capturing the image. Conceiving method by these to men here using it. I don't know. Maybe. It's hard to know because I am not. Holy crap. Doesn't even say the cost in here. What are we doing? Well, it's under 100K then. This article sucks. No longer using this website. Huh. Wow. That's really it. All right. Well, that sucks. That's too bad. Wonder what the price is. The application, the construction of the camera relies on a digital micro mirror devices commonly used in projectors. It is an unconventional way, but sounds like it pretty much works like a DSLR would at the end of the day. Being mass-produced and requiring no mechanical movement contribute to this camera's cost efficiency and stability. The applications of the drum camera are vast, including real-time drug delivery monitoring and hazard detection for driverless cars using high-speed LiDAR systems. Moreover, the camera's potential extends to biomedicine, automation, enabling technologies, nanosurgeries, laser-based cleaning applications. So you can use this camera for a lot of things. 4.8 million frames per second might be something that is not able to be processed with today's current technology. So there's that. Because cameras that shoot that's a lot of data to go through in real time. So that won't probably make it to anywhere in the consumer space for a long, long, long time. But it's cool. 4.8 million frames a second is absolutely... That is a wild number without being cost effective. But with being cost effective, it's, we're even more up there. And with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're watching, took away that I need to double check some of these articles, because sometimes I read a different article and then I click out of it and it disappears from my feed, and then I'm like, oh, I'll Google it and just add it so that I remember that I wanted to do that topic. And that was the wrong way to do it, because that was like, there was 2 articles today that sucked because I did that. So that's on me. But I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.